Morning. I hope everyone's well. For those who haven't seen me before, my name's Jo. Coming up 2 years ago now, I sold my house and bought a 30-acre agricultural field where I'm in the process of building a small farm. I put out a video over several different platforms. Must be a week ago now, sorry for the delay, asking people what topics they'd like me to cover most about what I'm doing here, or cover first, should I say. I was really pleased with the response. Thank you. I really appreciate anyone who got back to me on that. I had quite a few DMs and stuff asking me for different things as well. So that was really interesting. And yeah, it just helps. I'd rather put out stuff people want to hear about. Otherwise, it's just me sat here talking to my phone. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Overwhelmingly, people want to know about how much money has been spent and how much this sort of thing costs. And I completely get that. I think that would probably be what I would be looking to know about too. So that's no problem. What I am going to do though is spread it into some shorter videos. So there'll probably be 2 or 3, maybe more videos. I will do a roundup at the end, so I'm not trying to hide anything or not tell you the full costs. It's just, it would be a really long video. So I'm going to cover the 2 biggest costs in this one. And that's the land and the mobile home that I have, and siting the mobile home. So I guess the 3 biggest costs. Land, I'm doing this in separate shorter videos because otherwise it would be one really long video. Everything needs a bit of a caveat. So at the end of the day, you can spend what you can spend. Everything has a price or a value of some description, but there are various different ways you can get around spending as much money as I have. I have spent a lot of money here. I'm the first to admit it. To go out and buy a 30-acre small holding with a house already on site, where I am in the UK, you'd be looking at probably around 2.5 million, if not slightly more. I haven't spent anywhere near 2.5 million. I haven't got anywhere near 2.5 million, sadly. Barring a lottery win, I'm never going to have anywhere even near 1 million. But there are expenses. This is not... Sure, people have gone out and done it for tuppence halfpenny and a piece of string, and all credit to them. I think if you were to come into this with a budget of, say, 150,000, you're going to struggle. Realistically, unless you can find land really cheaply, which would be fairly rare. I mean, it is possible. You can do a good look around, look out for pieces of the land that are not kept, so they're very overgrown. Although equally that will come with its own costs. But need a lot of work. If you can find the owners, which you can do on the land registry, and approach them, then maybe they'll do you a deal and you can get the land really cheaply. But I would say that's fairly rare. Land costs. So the more acreage you buy, the cheaper the land is per acre. So again, only speaking for this area, but I'm on sort of like the Surrey-Sussex borders here, so an expensive area of the country. If you were looking to buy between sort of 1 and 6 acres of land, you're probably looking at between £30,000 and £35,000 per acre. As the areas get larger or the acreage gets larger, then the prices drop significantly per acre. So you're probably looking at between £12,000 and £15,000 per acre. And that's where I ended up on the 30 acres. I spent just over £13,500 per acre. For those of you that are good at maths, that it adds up in total to £415,000 I spent here on this 30 acres, or 30.36 acres. You do not need to buy this much land, so you don't need to spend as much. You don't even need to own all of the land. So to go down the permitted development route, you need at least 5 hectares, which is 12.5 acres, just under. So I could have bought less than half the land I've got here and still gone down the same planning route. However, you do need to consider what sort of business you're going to have. You need to have an agricultural business. It usually involves livestock for you to be able to justify living on site. So you need to have enough land to be able to support the amount of livestock you need. To make that, it's all to do with standard man days. This is all planning stuff, and we'll do that another day, as I say, but you need to look into that because you need to have enough livestock to make this work. I was naive on that front myself, and I've had to upscale what I originally planned to do here massively. I have, and I'm happy to do that. And I'm quite enjoying the challenge of it. I'm quite looking forward to having it up and running. I've got lots of plans of how to make it work with just me doing the work, because it's going to be a substantial amount of work. This is not going to be some automated. I'm not going to have some huge poultry barn which is all automated and climate controlled, and the eggs go onto a little travelator and come round to you. It's going to be a very hands-on business, but it is achievable. But you need to have the space to have enough animals here. So do your research on that front. We will go through it, as I say, another day. So I think for me, it would have been a struggle to get the business that I'm going to be doing onto 12.5 acres. I think that would have been a real struggle. So do consider that. You don't actually need to own all of the land. So you could go out and buy 5 acres. Yes, it would be at more of a premium than it would if you bought a larger acreage, but you can go out and buy 5 acres, as long as you can then find the rest of the acreage to rent nearby. So you'd need to rent another 7.5 acres nearby. And when I say nearby, it needs to be very nearby. It can't be 2 miles away. So that's another option. The only risk with that is obviously any of the risks you would get with renting anything. So if you invest anything into the land, so if it's not good grazing and you want to put a better lay down, then that costs money. I've had to do it here. It costs money. That's one of the costs that will come up later in another video. If you're going to put in fencing, because usually livestock involves fencing, and even if the perimeter's already fenced, it's likely you would need to make paddocks up as well. Fencing's expensive and it's time consuming. If you're going to do it yourself, it takes a lot of time. If you're paying someone else to do it, it takes a lot of money. So, there's a payoff either way. And if the rental agreement came to an end for some reason, or the landlord decided to break the lease for whatever reason, you've then invested a lot of your time and money. And yes, you could take your fencing away, but that's going to take you a lot of time as well. So time is something you will be quite short of doing something like this. So you just got to weigh up the risks. So there are ways to make it more affordable. So don't panic if you haven't got the kind of budget I was lucky enough to have. I did work hard for the budget I had. It didn't just fall into my lap, but it's still, you can make it work, but so don't panic that I'm telling you it's like pushing £500,000 I've spent here. It's that was my choice because I was in a position where I could do that. That doesn't have to be the case for you. The next biggest cost for me was my mobile home. I've got a twin unit static caravan. It's a decent size. I wanted something that was obviously small enough to still come under the Caravan Act. There are various rules. It has to be able to be transported in no more than 2 parts. You can do some reading on that. It's online, but or we'll go through it in the planning videos. But yeah, it needs to fulfill the criteria of the Planning Act. I'm well under the size limit on the Caravan Act. But it's quite a decent size. It's a 2-bedroom. It's got a little utility room, a nice sized kitchen. The living room's a decent size. I wanted space that was big enough. I've got a 52-kilo dog. I've got 2 cats that live indoors. So I didn't want to be feeling claustrophobic in my home. You're not looking at living in here a short time. It's not a couple of months. If it was something like 6 months, then obviously I could very happily have bought one of the tow-along caravans and we'd have made it work. And it would have been fine. But you're potentially looking at living in this home for sort of 5 years. And that's just me and my animals. If I had a family as well, I think living on top of each other would get tedious really quite quickly. And whilst in the summer it's fine because you can be outdoors. Obviously you just have a lot more space in the summer and possibly spring. But as soon as you start getting into the late autumn, winter, you're going to be spending a lot more time inside. It's just dark at 4 o'clock, isn't it? So, there's not the option to be outside, plus it's raining and it's cold. Not that it's much warmer inside, in all fairness. But yeah, you just need to consider. It'd be a real shame to go into this and end up splitting up with your partner because you're on top of each other and ready to kill each other after 6 months. So my advice would be to buy as big as you can. And it's fine to upgrade. So you could always start off cheaply. You could go van life for a few months, and then hopefully sell that and not lose too much on that, and then be able to upgrade as more money comes in for whatever reason, whether you get a small mortgage or something like that. On the land, don't recommend it, to be honest. I don't recommend land mortgages at all. My experience has been pretty grim with that, but it is what it is. Sometimes we just need to borrow money, and borrowing money is hard when you only have land without bricks and mortar. Banks are very loath to lend against land. They may lend against a farming business. You may be able to get a business loan. But as for mortgages, they can be quite hard to come by. You can save a substantial amount of money by buying off-site. So this home was on site. That was because I needed somewhere to live between selling the house and completing on that, and completing on the land and getting permitted development. Don't necessarily believe the 56-day rule. In my experience, what happens is they put your application through, but they don't really look at it properly until day 55. And then at the end of day 55, you'll get a very panicked phone call telling you you've got some information missing that they need, and that they're asking you to withdraw your application because they don't want to refuse it because they think it will go through fine, but they just need this missing information. And if you don't withdraw your application, you end up having to pay again. Whereas if you withdraw your application, you can, I mean, depend on the council, but my council certainly let me resubmit for free. But then, of course, you're open to another 56 days. And that can roll on for a while, as it turned out. So for me, it took 8 months, I think, in the end, to get my permitted development through. And there was actually no problem with what I was asking for as well. So to do that, bear that in mind. I did do it myself. So like a significant amount of that time was me, because I didn't know the answers to questions and then had to go away and speak to people and find the answers. It was to do with ramps and stuff for the barn. I didn't know the angle it needed to be, and that sort of stuff, so I had to get hold of people to get information that way. And there were some extra plans that were needed that I had to contact the company who produced the barn kit. So yeah, it took a long time. It would be quicker if you used the planning consultant, 100%. I reckon it would cost you well over £500 to do that though. Whereas permitted development costs under £100. So in the scheme of the money you're going to be spending, it's peanuts really. But back onto mobile homes. So this mobile home I bought on site, as I've said. So I paid just over 63,000. I think it was something like 63,200 or something random like that. Not a terrible price for this home, but had I bought it off site, it probably would have been about £10,000 less. So that is a consideration. If you've got somewhere else you can go for a few months, and you don't need a mobile home straight away to live in, then you've got plenty. You've got more scope there, and you can save yourself some money by buying your mobile home off site. You'll also save on transport costs, and that, it turned out, was a very big cost. You need some way of siting your home on your land once you've got your permitted development. You can't have a slab, or at least I'd be very surprised if you were able to get planning to have a concrete slab down for it to sit on, which would be the norm for these homes. I looked through various different options, and the most cost-effective way and simplest way to have a foundation here for me was to use foundation screws. They literally look like giant wood screws, and they are literally screwed into the ground. So they really are, as they say on the tin. I think the foundation screws here, they cost me just over, and I mean like £100 over £3,000. It's a couple of days work. It was a couple of guys and a couple of days work, plus buying the screws basically, and them having the tools. So in the scheme of costs, when you'd be looking sort of like probably about £10,000-15,000 to put a slab down, foundation screws are definitely a more budget friendly option. My dog's getting bored, which is always a sign, isn't it? So I'll wrap this up. Transporting the mobile home was a huge cost, and it was one I was not expecting. You need to have an emergency fund. You need to have, I would say, a minimum of 10 grand just somewhere waiting for something unexpected to come up. I thought moving this mobile home from the site it was on to here, it's about 12 miles. So I thought that would be the high hundreds, maybe £1,000 to do. You need to times that by 7 to get to what it cost me in the end. There are national mobile home movers who would probably have been cheaper, but they had no interest in doing the work. A lot of them are based up north anyway. So they had no interest in coming and moving a mobile home 12 miles. What I found within the local area, so local companies that do it, they generally tend to cover an area, and that's sort of by gentleman's agreement their area, so other people aren't particularly keen to come into those areas. So yeah, there's a bit of a captive market, and yeah, it cost me £7,000 to move my mobile home 12 miles, which was, yeah, just a huge cost I was not expecting. But there was just, it didn't matter how many phone calls I made, there was no one else who was going to do it. So and they did a great job, don't get me wrong, it did go really well. It went a lot better than I thought. And you know, they were really nice guys. It's not that, but yeah, it was a huge amount of money. That includes VAT, obviously, but it was a huge amount of money. And it did feel like just flushing it away, really, if I'm honest. But there are some things or at least I couldn't find a solution to, so I just had to suck it up. But yeah, so that's kind of the fundamentals of the first two huge expenses. Nothing else I've done has cost anywhere near, obviously, the land cost and the mobile home cost either. But there has still been a lot more money spent. So we're already at 415 plus 63, so £478,000 spent, plus the £3,000 for the foundation screws. So 481 plus the £7,000 for the moving of the mobile home, so 488,000 we're at so far, and that's just literally the land, the mobile home, and getting it sited. So as I say, you can reduce those costs drastically with what you spend on your land, how much land you buy, whether you rent some land instead, as well as having a small area of land your own, what sort of home you buy. So you could buy a £200 tow along caravan and live in that if you're happy and you feel you could live in that for a sustained period of time, then great, go ahead. You know, that just wouldn't be for me. But again, you know, it does very much depend on your budget. I probably would have done that if I'd had to. So yeah, I just had the budget I had, so I worked to that. So as I say, this is why I'm doing a series of videos, because I need to explain that you don't have to spend what I've spent, but there is rationale behind what I have spent. Anyway, I shall try and get the next video out tomorrow so that it doesn't take ages to get them all out to you, and you'll get them all quite quickly. I hope you found it a bit helpful. Yeah, let me know. Please follow along if you find this stuff interesting. I'm just trying to raise my follower count a bit. So if you're on a platform where you subscribe, please subscribe away. And if you're on a platform where you follow, please follow away. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Take care.